Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll learn numbers. We have three different numeric data types: int, float, and complex. Integer is a whole number, a number that is not a fraction, that is positive or negative without any decimal values. Float, numbers that contain floating decimal points. And a complex number is the sum of a real number and an imaginary number. We have type conversion to convert from one data type to other data type using the methods int, float, and complex. Now let's see the demo. Go to our IDE, PyCharm, go to our project practice, new Python file, and let's name it numbers demo. Now let me add the comment Python numeric data types demo int, float, and complex numbers. First let's see integer. Now let me create a integer variable by assigning a int value to it, 77. Let me create one more variable and assign this time negative value, and the third. So now we created three different integer variables. Now let's try to print these integer variables. Control S to save the file and right click, run numbers demo. So now you can see these three values printed in the console. So let me add, this is a integers demo, so you can see in the console as well. For the integers demo, this is the output. Now to print the data type of this variable, we have a function called type. Now if you run this file, you can see this 77 is an integer data type. So similarly, let's print data type of the second variable and the data type of integer variable int num3. So now you can see all these three are of type int. Now let's see float data type. So let me create a floating point number by assigning a float number 3.3, and let's create one more by assigning another floating point number and one more variable by assigning a negative value this time, and one last floating point number by assigning a scientific number. This means negative 3.3 to the power of 10. So let me add that comment as well. Now let's try to print all these floating point numbers in the console. Floating point num1 and num2 and num3 and the last one 4. Now let's run the file. Now you can see floating point numbers and the values inside the floating point numbers. So to see the data type of this variable, we have a function called type. Now you can see it is of class float. So the same way you can check the data type of the other three floating point numbers by passing the value to a type function 3 and 4. And now you can see all these four are of type float. Okay, now the last one, let's see the complex data type. Let me create a complex number by assigning a real plus imaginary number, and let's create one more complex number. Let's say 9 minus 9j, and let me create the third complex number. Let's say negative 9j, and the fourth one, let's say 9j. Now let's try to print complex numbers demo, and let's try to print the value inside all these complex numbers. Complex number 2, 3 and 4. Let's run it. Now you can see the complex numbers printed in the console. So to see the data type, we have type function and pass this variable. Now you can see it is of type complex. So similarly, you can check the data type of the other three complex numbers by passing them to a function called type. And now you can see all these four are of type complex. Now let's see the type conversion to convert from one data type to other data type. Let me add the comment here. Now let's create an integer variable and assign integer value to it, 77, and let me create a floating point variable and assign a floating point number to it. Now let me convert int to float by using float function, and let me try to print this variable. And now you can see integer value 77, it's converted to a floating point number 77.0. So similarly we can convert a float variable to int by using a int function. So just pass floating point variable and convert it to integer data type and run it. Now you can see, let me add the comment so you can see the distinction in the console as well. Type conversion demo. So and the output is 77.0 and 3. So this 3.30 is converted to an integer value of 3. Okay, so now we converted from float to integer. Now let's convert int to complex by using complex function and pass this integer variable. Now let me print this variable. Now you can see this integer variable is converted to a complex data type variable. Now to print the data type of this variable, just like others, we can use type function and pass these three variables. Now you can see it is of class float, int and complex. Now let's see random module to create random numbers. So random numbers demo. To import the module we have to use the keyword import, and random is the module name. Now let's print. So inside the random module we have a function called randrange. Now let's say we wanted to print the random numbers between 10 and 20. Save it and run. So 14. Now let's run again. So this time it is 19. Let's run again, and this time it is 15. So that's how we can generate the random numbers by using the random module and rand range function. All right, in the next lecture we'll learn casting.